Now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, house exchanges. So we can we'll talk about house exchanges today based on what Phaladipika says about it. Phaladipika says in the 6th chapter, 32, 33, and 34. Anyonyam bhavanatayor vihagayor lagnadi ripantakam. The lords of the houses can mutually occupy each other's houses in 66 ways. 30 of them are unfortunate because they involve the lords of the 12th, 6th, and 8th houses. 8 of them are temperamental because they involve the 3rd lord, and the rest of them are great. Now a note here. Unfortunate mutual exchanges, that's called dainya or dainya-parivartana. The 12th lord can form 11 of them. So before we do this note, actually, let's look at the words a little more closely. Anyonyam bhavanatayor vihagayor means that you can have a house exchange. I don't know any simpler way to say it. The lords of the houses can mutually occupy each other's house. So, for example, you can have the 12th lord in the 1st house and the 1st lord in the 12th house. Yeah, if I'm in your house and you're in my house, that's a house exchange, right? So if Lord A is in house B and Lord B is in house A, then that's a house exchange. Anyonyam bhavanatayor vihagayor, from all the houses, from the 12th to the 1st. Lagnadi ripantakam. But, yeah, from the 12th to the 1st. It says, Bhavadishvarayo kramena katita shashtashti yoga jana. These kind of house exchanges, they create 66 shashti yogas. They create 66 yogas. So the lords of the houses can mutually occupy each other's houses in 66 ways. Trishat dainyam. 30 of them are dainya, unfortunate. Udiritam vyaya ripuch chidradhinatotitas. Those unfortunate ones arise from involving the lords of the 12th, 6th, and 8th houses. So a house exchange is when Lord A is in house B and Lord B is in house A, or if A or B is 12, 6, or 8, then it's dainya, or unfortunate. 8 of them are temperamental. And then he says, Twashtao. That should be tu ashtao. Twashtao. Sauryapate. Sauryapate means 3rd lord. Khala, that's the name of the type, temperamental. Khala means that it's conditional or dependent, temperamental. To ashtao sauryapate kala nigadita shesha maha akya smrta. The rest of them are called maha. Good, great. Thanks, Ariana. So, a couple of notes. Unfortunate mutual exchange can arise from. Here's the unfortunate mutual exchange, right? So, 12 and 1. 12th lord, if it exchanges with the 1st house, that's unfortunate. 12th lord, if it exchanges with the 2nd house, that's unfortunate. So guess what? If the 12th lord exchanges with any house, it's unfortunate, according to this. So that's 11 possible situations. 12th with the 1st, 12th with the 2nd, 12th with the 3rd, 12th with the 4th, 12th with the 5th, 12th with the 6th, 12th with the 7th, 12th with the 8th, 12th with the 9th, 12th with the 10th, 12th with the 11th. 12th with the 12th doesn't happen. So there's 11. Now the next unfortunate one is the 8th or the 6th, right? Let's say the 8th. 8th with the 12th was already counted. So there's 10 new ones that can come out from the 8th. And then if you do the 6th, then 6th with the 12th was already counted, and 6th with the 8th were already counted. So then there is 11, 9, 8 possible ways. So altogether there's 66. Altogether there's 30. 11 plus 9 plus 8. For the unfortunate ones. And the third lord, 11 plus 10 plus 9. Then the third lord is got 8 of them left. There's 8 houses left. Because third and sixth, so this is the important point. If it's an exchange of third and sixth, that's dainya, not khala. Because it's counting first. That's why he's specifying how many numbers there are. So he's clear about what category is what. Third and 12th, third and 8th, third and 6th, those are already counted as unfortunate yogas. They're not khala. So it's in this precedence. If it's 12, 6, or 8, then it's unfortunate. Otherwise, if it's 3, then it's temperamental. Otherwise, it's great. All right. Now, he's going to explain the results. Unfortunate exchanges imply a hardworking and insolent fool who is always tormented by rivals. He speaks harshly, cannot keep his focus, and inadvertently ruins his own efforts. Temperamental exchanges imply a person who sometimes is soft-spoken, blessed, and successful, but at other times is harsh, unfortunate, and depressed. And then a note here, in an unfortunate exchange, a house mixes its significations with a difficult house. Unfortunate exchange is, it's going to involve 12, 6, or 8. So in that situation, you got one house mixing up with a difficult house. So the implications of the yoga are based on that. Hence, the difficult house ruins the efforts of the auspicious house. The native cannot keep their focus on the auspicious house, etc. And then in the temperamental exchange, the house mixes with the passionate and highly motivated third house. The implications are based on this fact, that the third house is passionate and motivated. And so you're going to have ups and downs. Hence, we find passion and rashness mixing with the auspicious significations of the other house. So reading these words now, Murkha Syat. Here's how he describes unfortunate exchange. Murkha Syat apavadako durikritin. So Murkha means he's a fool. Apavadaka means he's insolent or insulting or antagonistic. And duritakrit means they work hard. They work hard but not fruitfully. And then sapatnarita means always tormented by rivals. Can also mean bad marriage. But the partners are always troubling them. Murkasyad abhavadako durita krit nityam sapatnardita krurokti kila dainya-jas. There's harshly spoken. He speaks harshly. Krurokti. Chalamati. He can't keep his focus. Vichinna karyodamya. Karyodhyama means that he gives up on things halfway. So this is the key, really. This is the last word. Is the concept that is involved with a house exchange with the 12th house, 6th house, or 8th house, is that the difficult house is interrupting peace of the good house. The concept. And then for the temperamental exchanges, udvritascha kale. Sometimes udvritascha kale kadachit. Sometimes the kala yoga, the temperamental yoga, you get a person who basically it's udrita. I don't know if I really translated this. think the translation could include the concept that they're always udvrita, which means they work hard. They like to work. But it's not like the unfortunate yoga. The unfortunate yoga, they work hard, but foolishly. The temperamental yogas, they work hard, and sometimes they're successful, but not always. Udritascha kale kadachit akilam bhagyam labet. Sometimes, as a result of the work, they get all kinds of good results. Akilam sangyoktis. Sometimes some yoktischa kadachit. Sometimes they are very nicely spoken. But other times, ashubham. Other times they speak very harshly, and they're a harsh person. Daridya dukkadikam, and they become, sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're depressed, sometimes they're wealthy, sometimes they're poor. So the concept of the house exchange involving the third lord is that the other house gets dependent upon their passions. Passions are unsteady. So sometimes you'll be up for something and working hard at it and getting success with it, and then the other times you'll just not have any enthusiasm for it, or be negative about it, be highly negative about it. So do you understand the difference between the dainya yoga and the khala yoga? So 9th and 12th is a dainya yoga, 6th and 7th are dainya yogas. 4th and 3rd is khala yoga. 8th and 3rd, dainya yoga. Now finally, Chatalin Ichim says, hello, why would it matter if 12, 6, 8 interchange? Aren't they bad anyway? Finally, somebody asked this question. This is a good question. In my opinion, and it doesn't make too much sense that 12 and 6, 12 and 8 would be bad to exchange with each other. So keep that on the table. He has not said anything like that. But keep it on the table. You know how you have to read the whole chapter, at least the whole book, before you come to a conclusion about any one of the statements in it. He may say something else later. Or other books may say other things about it. Other books call these things viparit yogas, where you put, where if you exchange 12 and 6, if you exchange 2 dainya houses, then there's not this situation where one thing is interrupting the auspiciousness of another. So it's not bad, it's actually good. So this is a good question from Catalan. Probably the author has skipped mentioning that it's, although the 12th, 6th, and 8th lords cause dainya yoga when they exchange with other houses, they don't cause the dainya yoga when exchanging with themselves. However, can't be certain about that yet because he mentioned the numbers of yogas. He said that there should be 30 of the dainya yogas, and there's only 30 yogas if you do include 12 and 8 and 12 and 6 and 8 and 6. But keep it on the table, okay? Or at least realize that it's not the same type of dainya yoga. Okay, let's see what else he says. Now he's going to explain. Sri Kataksha Nilaya Prapuradayas Chitra Vastra Kanaka Bharanascha Pritivapta Bahumanara Samakyo Yanavita Sutta Vangsha Mahakye. Mukund has an Mukund, you have a good question also. So Mukund's question is, okay, Capricorn ascendant. Capricorn is the Lord. Let's take Aquarius ascendant. Capricorn, Saturn is the lord of 12 and 1. So if you have Saturn exchange with Jupiter, Jupiter would then be the lord of, what's that other house going to be? Yeah, 3. So that would be 2 and 11. Jupiter's now the lord of 2 and 11. So if Saturn and Jupiter are exchanging, is it an exchange of 1 and 2? Or 12 and 2? Or 12 and 11? Or 1 and 11? What is it? So the simple answer to this is it's not the Lord. They have to be anyonyam, was the exact word. Anyonyam vihagayor. Where are they sitting? So if you have an Aquarius ascendant and Saturn is in the 2nd house and Jupiter is in the 12th house, then it's a 12-2 house exchange. If Aquarius ascendant and Jupiter is in the 1st house and Saturn is in the 11th house, then it's a 1-11 ascendant exchange. Okay, so it's actually depends on the houses that are exchanging. It's also interesting that he doesn't mention the word parivartana anywhere. But the word parivartana is also interesting to understand. Varta means to move and pari means around. So the word parivartana is talking about a circuit which is formed, a circuitous movement. So that will help you understand, like, you need to, you're actually forming a circuit. Like if you have a circuit board and you take a Lord and plug it in this other socket, and then you take that Lord and plug it in the socket that that wire came from. Now you have a circuit. That's called parivartana. Now, it doesn't matter that this circuit is also connected to this one. It doesn't matter too much. What really primarily matters is that the circuit came from this point, went to that point, and came after that point. Oh, so hopefully that answers your question, Mukund. Was that Mukund? Now let's see what he says about Maha-yogas. Sri Kataksha Nilaya Prabharadayash Chitravastra Kanaka Bharanascha Pritivapta Bahumana Rasamagyo Yanavita Sutta Vangscha. Vangscha. I didn't notice there's a cha in it. Mahake. Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe it's not. Anyway, it's not a big deal. Great exchanges. This is for the maha-parivartanas. Great exchanges imply a person whose glance the goddess of fortune rests upon. Sri Kataksha Nilaya. A person who has Sri Kataksha, the glance of the goddess of fortune. Powerful and prosperous Prabhu Radhya. Powerful and prosperous. With fancy clothes and jewelry. Chitra Vasta Kanaka. Bharanascha. Admired by powerful and qualified people. Pritiv Apta Bahumana Rasam. And Agyo Yana Vitasutta Vangsh. Having a very large family, being in charge of a very large family with many vehicles and much wealth. So basically, it's just Sri Kataksha Nilaya. It's just basically very nice if you have a house exchange that does not involve 12, 6, 8, 3. Any questions? I'll show you some charts. Well, I'll wait to see if you have questions. I'll set that up. Here's a very important one. What if Rahu is involved in the Maha-yogas? Rahu is not a lord of a house, so Rahu can't be involved in a Raja Yoga. But Rahu can just be affecting the planet. Basically, the question is, should we care about the other situations? Of course you should. But this is learning about Parivartana Yoga. Learning about Parivartana Yoga, just learn about it on its own. Actually interpreting it in a chart, should you care about all the rest of the situation? Of course, that's what everybody constantly says all the time. Do you understand what I'm saying? The circumstances of the chart determine how something in the chart will actually work. Just like the circumstances, I have a computer, and the circumstances that I'm in determine how I will use the computer. Yeah, maybe somebody is using it to design architectural buildings, somebody else is using it to run their Instagram account, somebody else is using it for their physics PhD major in university, but it's the same computer, right? Because it has different context. And same, it's exactly analogous to how any part of a chart works inside a chart. If you have a Parivartana Yoga where one planet is depressed, that's something to consider. When another planet is exalted, that's something to consider. If one planet is difficult aspects, that's something, of course, you have to consider everything else. But you don't want to bog down the conversation by constantly talking about all that stuff. If there's a house exchange between two planets that do not rule 12, 6, or 8, but in one of those houses, how would you do that? That would not be possible. This question is, what if you have a house exchange between two planets that don't rule 12, 6, or 8? But in one of those houses, if you can't, you have to have anyonyam ovanata. I can't. There's not a house exchange. If I'm in your house and you're not in my house, then we can't have a house exchange. So if you're in house 12 and I'm not a lord of house 12, it can't be a house exchange. Hi, Derek. All right. Any other questions? Red. Is he saying it's better to have 12 and 12 and 8 and 8? Because 12 and 1 will give problems in two houses instead of just one. And 12 and 1 is not really going to give two problems. It's going to give a problem with the first house. 12 and 12 is a good thing to do. 8 and 8 is a good thing to do. It's actually also a good thing to do 8 and 12. Or 8 and 6. And I'm just telling you that. It's not really written here, but it's written elsewhere. And it's just a fact that it's also good to put the 8th lord in the 12th house, or the 12th lord in the 8th house, or the 6th, etc., to switch their houses around. And you guys keep asking about 6th and 7th. I already gave you the information you need. Do you want me to depress you and tell you it literally? I already told you that it's a dainya-parivartana yoga to have the 6th lord involved. Now you want to do it with the 7th house, and you want me to talk about that? You're making me talk about that? Okay, let's look at these charts. I'll show you some interesting ones. Let me see if it's set up. 1 second. Gotta set this up. Where did it go? 1 second. I think we can make this window a little smaller. Ronaldo. What else books can you recommend that you value, except Phaladipika, Brihad Parashara, Shastra, and Taittiriya? That's like asking me who my children are, except for my 3 children. But how about my books? Go to victorcara.com/books. Do we treat Parivartana yoga as if planets are in their own house? Why? Why are you asking that question, doctor? He just told you how to treat it. No, you don't treat it as if they're in their own house. Okay, look. Do we have it on screen now? Here's a good example. An excellent example. This is an excellent example of a maha-parivartana. Can you find it, first of all? Do you see the maha-parivartana? Well, let's see. Is it the moon? If it would be the moon, then Jupiter would have to be in Cancer, right? Because the moon is in Sagittarius. Sagittarius belongs to Jupiter. Is Jupiter in Cancer? No. Jupiter is actually in Aquarius. So is it with Jupiter and Saturn? Then Saturn would have to be in one of Jupiter's signs. Is it? No. Saturn is in Aries. Well, is it Saturn and Mars? Well, yes, because Saturn is in Capricorn. Now, this is a very significant Maha-yoga because it's the 2 Kendra houses, 10 and 7. It's a very good Maha-yoga. Is it a dainya-yoga because Saturn also rules the 8th house? No. It's a Maha-yoga because it's the one planet is in the 10th and the other planet is in the 7th. So this is a good example to clarify a few things. Is it very special, even more special, for certain reasons, because one planet is debilitated and the other planet is exalted? You're damn right. You're very smart. How did you see that? That's the truth. So this is a fantastic maha-parivartana yoga, which is really doing something very important to the conspicuous debilitated Saturn in the 10th house. Really doing something good with it. Do you know whose chart this is? Oh my God. I have a sinking suspicion, Dr. Gaurav Singhalji, that you just signed in late because you're asking all the questions about things that we talked about. Yes, Jonathan, that's correct. So Saturn is debilitated. It's doing something very important to this Saturn. Saturn's debilitated, but now it's in the Parivartana yoga with its exaltation, Lord. This chart is Einstein's chart. People need to know the power of Saturn and Mercury conjunctions. Nobody really talks about this, but if you want a scientist, you need to get Mercury with Saturn. Okay, so this is a very, very powerful example of a person who has a very, very big Maha yoga. Liberty, Capricorn ascendant, Venus in Scorpio, Mars in Libra. No. Would Sun in Scorpio conflict? No, but I just want you to understand this. You can stop asking all your questions and just start concentrating on the material that you can learn, because I told you there's a million other things. You always have to consider the context. Of course, it's always going to affect it, but you shouldn't be trying to talk about that right now. You shouldn't be trying to talk about that right now. You should be trying to understand the essence of what's the new material. Otherwise, you keep sodding it up with all this complex stuff. You're not going to learn the basics. Does the niche manga also apply if the planet in question is retrograde or combust? Of course it does, but it's going to be a little bit different. What else we got? A couple of other examples. Yeah, so that was Albert Einstein. Then there's this one. Priyanka Chopra, can we find this Parivartana? Well, is it the moon? Yeah, it's the moon. It's pretty easy to find this one. The moon's, you could start at the first house. Moon's in Gemini, belongs to Mercury. Mercury's in Cancer, which belongs to the moon. So there you have an exchange of the first and the second houses of Maha Yoga. This is a maha-parivartana. This is a good yoga. The first and the second from a very good-looking person. Healthy person, kind of wholesome person. Let me show you another one. There's not that many, actually. It's kind of rare. Let me show you this one. Now this is another kind of like Einstein. This is another amazing one. See if you can find the Parivartana Yoga here. Is it Jupiter? If it's Jupiter, where's Jupiter? I mean, why did I start with Jupiter? Because Jupiter's the first lord. I don't know. Is it Jupiter? Jupiter is in Leo, so that depends on where the sun is. If the sun is in Sagittarius or Pisces, then she has a house exchange. So do you see? She has a house exchange between the 4th and the 9th houses. That's maha-parivartana. That's a very good parivartana. It's a very good house exchange. JP is saying he has 11 and 12. That's a dainya-parivartana. So this is Elizabeth Taylor. Now, 4th and 9th. 4th house is very important for female in terms of how attractive they are. Also, it's the first lord. Just to give you some of the things her first lord is involved in. But the primary thing that you're thinking about is going to make her very, very fortunate and wealthy. Because 4th and 9th going to give blessings. PMS, what do you think of quasi-exchanges involving 3 houses? That's not an exchange, that's a loop, right? It's not an exchange, it's a loop. So let's see if we can find one here. Can't really find one in this chart. Maybe in this Navamsha. Oh, look, her Navamsha has a maha-parivartana too. With the 1st house and the 5th house. That's a big clue. And then you can't find a link here either. Saptamsha. Anyway, those are just dispositor chains, PM. don't try to treat them like Parivartana yogas. And who else was on here on this list of people? This one is interesting. Let me just do this one a little less interesting first. Bill Gates. Bill Gates. Let's find the Parivartana yoga. Can you find it? Is it with Jupiter and the Sun? No, because the Sun is in Mars's sign. Is it with Mars and Venus? Yes. Mars is in Venus's sign. Venus is in Mars's sign. So he's got what kind of a Parivartana yoga? 4th house, 5th house. Now, let me tell you something else about Parivartana yoga. Besides being a yoga on its own, it also functions as a mechanism for forming other yogas. And you saw that in that I mentioned about Einstein's chart, how it does Nichbang. So it acts like a conjunct. It links two things together. Parivartana links two things together, forms a circuit between two things. So it acts like a mutual aspect or a conjunction. And hence it also acts as a means to form other yogas. So for example, if you're trying to link the 2nd house and the 11th house, and those two lords have exchanged their houses, then you've linked those houses. So the reason why I'm bringing that up now is because often what will happen with the Parivartana yoga is it will also be a Raj yoga. If the houses are, what of them is a Kendra and what is a Kona? Excuse me, if what is an angle and what is a trine. So that was the case with Elizabeth Taylor. And that is the case with Bill Gates as well. So the Parivartana yoga between 4th and 5th house is Raj yoga. If you have Kendra and Kona exchanging, then that's not only is it a maha-parivartana yoga, it's also a Raj yoga, which we haven't heard about yet, but we will soon. Then, all right, and now that's Bill Gates, and now there's one more interesting example here. Another interesting example is Jim. Can you find Parivartana yogas here? Well, is it Ketu? No, because Ketu doesn't own any houses. Is it the moon? Well, that would have to be with Venus, because the moon is in Venus's sign. Is Venus in the moon sign? No. Is it Mars? Well, that would have to be with Mercury, because Mars is in Mercury sign. Is Mercury in a Mars sign? No. Is it Saturn? Boom. Saturn would have to be in exchange with Mercury, because it's in Mercury sign. Where is Mercury? It's in Saturn's sign. Here's an exchange between 5 and 12. This is dainya-parivartana. A hardworking, insolent fool, etc. Thank you, Red. No, Ken. No, Angel. I haven't even really seen an authentic. I have not yet seen an authentic description of Kendradipati Dosh. So I don't take it very seriously. So back to Morrison. Dainya yoga, hardworking fool, insolent, etc. But well, he's a famous guy, so what's going on? And was good looking for a while. What else is going on? Maybe there's another one. Or maybe there's something else. But in fact, there's another one. Jupiter and Sun. Jupiter is in Leo, Sun is in Sagittarius. That's 11 and 7. So that's a fortunate. So Jim Morrison is an interesting case where you have a chart with one Maha and one Dainya. So the Maha Yoga, and he's a good illustration of this because his life is such a flip-flop. between being sexy and powerful and famous to being infamous and fat and dead. So that is one thing that kind of plays with that. Fifth and 12th house, though, he did have a fantastic imagination, but probably without the other good things in his chart, it wouldn't have really been more than daydreaming. Although his fifth house is getting a benefit of it has a Raja Yoga in it, but it's also got this Dainya Yoga. So that's when it's, and his moon is exalted. So it's getting, in the context of this chart where the fifth house is a Raja Yoga, the moon is exalted, and then there's a Dainya Yoga of the 12th and the 5th. It's helping to have a very, very good imagination. But it's also a Dainya Yoga, and it's going to make him unfortunate. But then there's this very good yoga of 11 and 7, which is making him very attractive. You see, to get details about the yoga, you just consider the houses that are involved. It's going to make him very attractive, enjoyable, pleasant, desired by the opposite sex. This is also why you don't have kids when there's a Parivartana 5 and 12, yes, and then there's also malefics in the 5th house, which is also making life difficult with kids. All right, those are examples of the Parivartana yogas. Any last questions about those? I'm just let's review one more time. For Dr. Gaurav Singhal, who came late. Let's review all the descriptions. Anyonyam bhavanatayor vihagayor lagnadi repantakam bhavadhishwarayo kramena katita shasti yogachanai trisha dainya mudiritam vyayaripuch chidradina dotitas tashtau soryapate khala nigadita shesha mahakya smrita. The lords of the houses can mutually occupy each other's house in 66 ways. 30 of them are unfortunate because they involve the lords of the 12th, 6th, and 8th house. 8 of them are temperamental because they involve the 3rd lord. The rest of them are great. 66, by the way, so why? The 12th lord can make 11 combinations, and the 11th lord can make 10. But actually, the reason why he grouped it like this is to say, first you do the 12th, then you do the 8th, then you do the 6th, then you do the 3rd, then you do the rest. So it actually goes like this. The 12th lord could make 11 combinations. The way that he's teaching it, the 8th lord can do 10 combinations because one of them was already taken by the 12th. So each next one is going to go down 1. And that's how you wind up with 66. 12th can do 11, 8th can do 10, 6th can do 9, 3rd can do 8, and 11th now has 6 left. Or 7 left. 10th has 6. 9th has 5. 7th has 4. 5th has 3. 4th has 2. 3rd has 1. 2 has 1. So that equals 60. That's how you get 60. And that's the technical details of how he has grouped them and how he's counting them. Then he gives the effects of each one of the 3 types. So there's 3 types of Parivartana yogas. It's either a great one, a temperamental one, or a difficult one, an unfortunate one. If it's in 6, 8, or 12, then it's difficult. If it's in 3, then it's unfortunate. Then it's temperamental. And if it's anywhere else, except 6, 8, 12, or 3, then it's great. Now that doesn't, however, mean that there's more great ones than there are unfortunate ones or temperamental ones. There's actually 38. There's 30 unfortunate ones, which is almost half. It is actually very balanced, right? There's 30 unfortunate ones, Then 8 of them are temperamental. They go both ways. So that adds up to 38. So now you got 22 left over that are good. They're great. So it's almost balanced, but it's a little bit unbalanced towards being unfortunate. However, as I did mention, he doesn't say this, but 12 and 8, 12 and 6, and 6 and 8 are actually not bad. They're good. So that would put another 3 onto the 28, make it 31, and it would take another 3 away from the 30 to make it 27. It would even it out a little bit better. Okay, now he describes the effects of unfortunate, temperamental, and great yogas. He says, Murkasyat apavadako durakritin nityam sap. What does he say? Murkasyat apavadako duritakrin nityam sapadnardita kurokti kila dainya jas chalamatir vichinna karyodhyama udvirtascha kale kadachid akilam bhagyam labed akilam sam yoktischa kadachid evam asubam daridra dukkadikam. Unfortunate exchanges imply a hard-working and insolent fool who is always tormented by rivals. He speaks harshly, cannot keep his focus, and inadvertently ruins his own efforts. Temperamental exchanges imply a person who sometimes is soft-spoken, blessed, and successful, but at other times is harsh, unfortunate, and depressed. And Sri Kataksha Nilaya Prabhuradyas Chitra Vastra Kanaka Varanascha Pritivapta Bahumana Rasam Agyo Yanavita Sudavangscha Mahakye. Great exchanges apply a person whose glance the goddess of fortune rests upon, powerful and prosperous, with fancy clothes and jewelry, admired by powerful and qualified people, and lead a large family with many vehicles and much wealth. So basically, the unfortunate exchanges are tough. The temperamental exchanges with the third lord are temperamental. They go sometimes good, sometimes bad. And the other ones are good. You get blessings. Did I want to say? This also just shows you the nature of the lords. And especially, I think it's very important to learn the third house is like. Because the third house causes this temperamentalness is important to revealing its nature as being temperamental because it's based on passion. Tatiana. Is it possible to have Parivartana in yoga and divisional charts like Navamsha? Yes, and Elizabeth Taylor had one. I think you came in late also. Samurai Mama, you are always saying to us that yogas are almost an excuse to learn important stuff about how to interpret charts beyond the presence of the yoga. Yeah, I just kind of mentioned that about the third house. This one, not so much, except it shows you there's 3 categories of houses. There's the Dushtanas and the third house, and then there's the rest of them. Is positive a Parivartana yoga between Saturn and Mercury? Tatiana, you just go back or just listen to the description. If it's positive, then it's not involving the 12th, 6th, 8th houses. And even if it doesn't involve the third. Third and 6th, dreaming snail. Very difficult. So what would dreaming snails be considered, dainya or khala? It's going to be considered dainya. So dreaming snail, very appropriate name. Just joking. Like I said, you have to see the whole context of everything. All right. See you in 2 days for continuing and actually getting started with Pritu's story. Bhagavatam. Thank you. What's this? Wait, cut, Davey said. Another between 7 and 11. Maybe that was about Jim Morrison. Okay, guys.